Oh, there
Hello.
we go.
Yeah.
There he is. So crazy few days over the last 7 days or so, Carlos. And I was just gonna get a feel. How you feeling about all this?
Giddy. Very giddy. Giddy as.
I was up yesterday at, geez, my alarm didn't even go off. I just got up out of bed at 3 a.m. to get in and help the team and get us over the line with the Ethereum ISPO, which we have been talking about for how long now?
7 months, I believe.
Yeah. So we finally got that thing over the line. We got it on Lido, which is great. We had the Mario conversation, which was great. We had the post on Cointelegraph, which was great. And then we just did our deployment yesterday, and it went off pretty much without a hitch. Personally, for everybody behind the scenes, personally, what I did is I was like, I've been doing software and programming, marketing, like all this kind of stuff, operations for, geez, going on, I think at this point it's like 20 some odd years, both in the startup space and behind the scenes working with some very big brands. And I can't believe how awesome this was. Like near zero no bugs, no hiccups, no nothing. We just smoothed out there. So I just wanted to say, Carlos, on behalf of the Rabbit, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's the advantage of having worked with a team for several years together, right? For those of you that don't know, me and the DEGA team have been building blockchain technology for about 6 years now, maybe even more. Yeah, we just did a change in the year, right? So probably 7 years now. Our very first project was actually a layer one for a client. So that was like the hardest possible challenge, literally, was the first project that we ever got. Then we also created a DEX back then, and it was a cross-chain DEX before Uniswap was created, right? So, it was tough back then. There weren't nearly as many resources as there are today for development. So we had to come up with a lot of new stuff, right? That's why some of the transitions are smooth. We still have a few areas of improvement, of course, but that's just life, right? We'll always keep improving forever.
And then, Carlos, just so everyone knows, how did you get your start in business? Or just, I know some people on the call have heard this, but for any of our new listeners, they might want to hear a little bit about your history, and then I'll be happy to tell you a little bit about mine too.
Yeah, my passion for tech, if we want to go from the start, my passion for tech started by watching anime. The very first one that I watched was Robotech was released back in the 80s. It was the first anime that I ever saw, and it was like captivating for me, right? And then I've always liked tech. My dad was an educator, so he had access to computers relatively soon from a Honduran perspective. That's where I'm originally from. So just started playing around with it and so forth. Then I didn't prog in the sense of experimenting with it. Obviously, you don't have the ecosystem and the environment over there at the Caribbean in Honduras, but still, I always liked computers and I always did know how to program them. And then once I went to the university, I graduated in computer science and started working on the enterprise world, worked for the Honduran government, banks, and telecom as well. And then I had the opportunity to go international. Back in last few months of 2013, I went to work with Wells Fargo Bank, went to the United States, met my team there, then started working with them remotely from Costa Rica, from a special security outlet. The American banking system has very strict regulations in terms of how to outsource work to other companies. So we were all under very high scrutiny in a secure facility. And after that, I decided that I wanted to do a little bit more of innovation. So I started working with IBM Watson for Latin America. Started doing AI integrations back in the Unity game engine as early as 2016, right? And Unity was less popular back then, and so AI was hot, but it was still not nearly as it is today. And then when the ICO boom started to happen in 2017, that I thought that would be something that would have happened until 2022, right? I knew the crypto revolution was coming, but it happened way faster than what I thought. So I decided to push my team to only do blockchain tech from then on, right? And that's how we started working on all sorts of different projects like layer one, side chains, DEXs, marketplaces, arbitrage bots, a whole bunch of stuff. And I also had the opportunity to work personally at a personal level, not with my team, with IOHK. And there I led the Cardano sidechains program for about a year. And then I left there to create DEGA just because the passion for the vision that we have here, just like it needed to start making progress, right? We needed to make this a reality. And that's when I decided to create DEGA.
And that's funny. It's you think of I actually have I have a similar story, but it's like you go through all these different businesses and you work with all this different technology and you're like, if they have just done it this way, it would be so much better. And then you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go build it. Yeah, it's actually it's a very familiar story on my side as well. And if anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the RabbitKing. I'm the chief operating officer here. So what I do is I keep the trains running on time and do a very high level strategic and operational like QC, like always quality checking things that we're doing, things that we're saying, the way that we're communicating, the way that we're presenting ourselves, our technology. And the reason that I can do all that, because if I want to go all the way back, it's funny that Carlos mentioned anime. Anime is what did it to me too. Back in the 1980s, I lived in Massachusetts, and my town was actually the first test bed for or the radio the television station that was from like Boston to the west of the state was a test bed for a anime called Force 5, and it was like 5 different anime cartoons, and they would play one of the series on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like throughout the 5 days of the week. And I saw all these like giant mecha robots and everything like that, and all their dashboards and everything like that. My little tiny brain was like, I want to do that. I want to build something like this one of these days. So then I also had a very technical father as well. My father's work is actually in the Smithsonian Museum here in the United States. He worked in electron beam welders, which is a highly technical form of welding where you cannot have any kind of mistakes in your welding, and they do the welding with this electron beam with this huge machine. So my dad actually did the welding for the spacesuits for the Apollo 11 mission, and the glove is in the Smithsonian Institute. So I've been surrounded by government contracts and government security stuff and FBI agents knocking on our doors and all throughout my life. So I always had this kind of like government lean and technical lean, but I also had a very artistic lean. My mother and her whole side of the family were chefs, musicians, artists. My sister and my brother are both amazing musicians. I sing, I write. If you notice, I do a lot of the writing here at DEGA. What I
That's
did is I actually
really
went and,
touch.
oh yeah, it comes from my mom. It comes from my mom's side of the family. My dad, it's like you draw a line down the middle of me, and it's one side of me is extremely severe and technical, and the other side of me is extremely artistic. And I take both of those things and blend them together very well inside this entity that I am, and it comes out in very different ways. But anyways, I went directly into media as a operations person. I got my start in HR with a book company, a publisher called Houghton Mifflin, biggest publisher, one of the biggest publishers in the world, where I helped them straighten out all their operations and analytics and how to measure your business and all that kind of stuff. Went on to digital marketing after that, where I worked with a company called Digitas. And they got that introduced me to a ton of people that I'm still in contact with today in the digital media market space. And then from there, I was like, well, I can't learn anything more from anybody. Nobody can teach me anymore. So I went on to Deloitte Consulting, where I did global consulting for media and technology. And that's where things really started to take off. And that's where I took my psychology background. I went to school for psychology and blended it with technology and got really into AI way back before any of this stuff you're seeing in AI it was even real. It was like I was looking at the research on people's desks that you're actually playing with today in the AI space. So I'm deeply embedded in the AI community. And then from there, after Deloitte, I just went off on my own and started doing my own AI startups, they got acquired by government and by government contractors. and then just did consulting on the side and doing startups and so on and so forth. And one of the projects that came across my desk was DEGA. And I'm like, okay, so hold on a minute. I'm like, I love blockchain. I've been in contact with the peer-to-peer guys. I saw Bitcoin coming years before it even became a thing. This is blockchain, but it's also AI, but it's also media. Maybe I should like join the project. So Carlos and we worked something out, and now I help here as the chief operating officer here at DEGA. Now,
And I
Freak and I have a very special relationship because I come from an extremely creative media background and all the Hollywood connections that I have, and not to mention the special relationship I have with Carlos, which we have a very interesting relationship as well. But I want Freak. Why do you and I gel like we gel without where you come from?
just a small intro on me, just so you also know. I come to DEG as a creative director and evangelist, but actually I come from these 7 different creatures living in different realities and dimensions and multiverses, and for some reason the small part of them came together in our reality, and they all crowded together and agreed to manifest in human form, and they created me, but I still hear their voices. So that's why I connect with the rabbit, because all these people live in my head, all these weird creatures from other dimensions are in charge of creating like crazy, and that's what they're here. So I just channel them into whatever Dega needs and that Dega wants and wherever Dega is going. And the rabbit understands those creatures for some reason, and they create a
I
massive
blew
creative
up with them.
force. That's my
I
that's my
seriously
shortest
did.
intro.
Yeah, Freak, you're selling yourself a little short there. Freak's background is Hollywood. He is a filmmaker. If you can tell from some of the videos that he does, he actually is really good at the kinds of camera angles and creative vision and storytelling and all the stuff. And he's very excitable. And we all at Data really appreciate that. I think the community does as well. So I don't want to go too far. We've already taken 20 minutes of everyone's time. I don't want to go too far into our backgrounds, but we did want to let you know we are real people doing real things here. We are a community of delivery based people. That's why you see when we say something, we do it. But on that, we say something, we do it. I wanted to just take the first few minutes of this to turn it over to Carlos, because there are some things when we make a promise, we want to make sure that we're fulfilling it for you and what you're asking for. And I think there's 3 things that we need to discuss with everybody and let everybody know about that we've talked about in the past and we've amplified as part of our communication, and bring everybody up to speed on where we're at right now and what's coming next, just in the short term from some of these items that we've been talking about up to this point. Carlos, I want to challenge you right now to tell everybody what's been going on and what those 3 items are and how we're going to actually roll those out to people.
Yeah, it's a few things that we've had pending all along, but I assure you, everybody, these are actually really good news in the sense of more DEGA tokens for you. So one of the key things has been the DEGA realms and DEGA elements released on the Cardano mainnet, right? So that we finished the development already. There were a few issues that we found in testing. Some of the main delays there in deployment were due to multiple factors coming in our face by surprise. For example, when we got the audit for the Ethereum smart contract, basically the auditors told us, guys, we only have availability between these dates. Can you take them? So we took them, and we had to rush, and everybody had to focus on that, right? For those of you who don't know, audits in the blockchain world are like a must in the sense of when you're deploying systems that manage people's money, right? It's far easier to do with stuff like a gaming NFT or something like that. You probably don't need an audit for that. But unlike Cardano, where the yield is using the native protocol security that's already been reviewed and audited and has its own process that's worked out by the people over there at IOHK, Cardano Foundation, and the other open source contributors, in Ethereum, we had to build the ISPO technology. It didn't exist, right? There's liquid staking tokens like Lido, on top of which we developed, right? But there's no way for you to delegate to somebody and then have them keep the rewards, right? Like you work with ISPO. So we had to code that, and we had to do our own security review, of course. That one threw us a little bit off of our schedule. And we had to scramble to get that done, and that's what delayed the Cardano elements and the Cardano map builder on mainnet. But the coding is done. We did find a few more hiccups while we were testing, but it should be deployed, I don't know, either today, tomorrow, or Saturday, something like within the next 3 days, we'll be deploying that. So stay tuned for that. The other point is those of you who acquired the PMP, the pre-mint pass. For you, as you will recall, back then, the pre-mint pass, when it was open, it was at $1 purchase of like equivalent like $10. And now we will be migrating those to Elements because we believe the Elements is like a better framework to build upon. It's more abstract than what we were originally thinking for the pre-mint pass. With the migration, you're actually being migrated to Gold Elements, right? No, sorry. It was it to gold? Yeah, to gold. So you'll be migrated to gold elements, and those are an equivalent dollar price of about $50. So you're getting per B, you're getting a 5x value off the bat. And if you'll recall, the original PMPs didn't have DEGA airdrop, right? That was not part of their feature set. But the migration that we're doing for you now will include that. So now you've gotten an item that is 50, that is 5 times more expensive, and you're getting the DEGA airdrop and the stackable bonuses that we've announced, right? That was something that everybody wanted when we released the ISPO. They were like, can we stack the bonuses, right, for the NFTs? So we're going to give you that. And even though we haven't released a stackable feature, the code to accept, to review everybody's holdings and then give you the bonus, that'll probably be next week. When we do release it, it'll be retroactive, meaning that it'll be giving you rewards for your ISPO delegations from January 15th onward, which was our original target date to have that ready. So that means that now you're actually giving more days to collect your elements or to migrate your PMP to an element. And if, for example, if you buy one tomorrow, if we had done the release on January 15th, you would have not had those bonuses. But now we're going to give them to you retroactively. So you're actually getting more DEGA now. So those are like the two main things that come to mind. Rabbit, was there something else?
So you mentioned Cardano mainnet for elements. You mentioned stackable bonuses but you also put that into the PMP. I'll turn it over to the chat. Is there anything else that anyone has a question about regarding those three things? And then if no one has any other questions about that, we'll move on to the meat of the presentation. But I guess my question would be, Carlos, are those from a deployment perspective, are those the next few things that we're working on? Because the Ethereum ISPO, I already have my friends, because I got my start in Ethereum. I have friends coming to ask me when that's going to be available. I don't want to put a hard date on it, but at the same time, just an order of operations would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, so Cardano mainnet elements is first, then PMP migration, then the stackable bonuses will apply, right? And
Okay.
for all of, because this is also another question that arises often, which is, do I gotta migrate my elements from one chain to the other if I want to get the Ethereum bonus or whatnot? And no, that won't be necessary, right? We'll give you an option there where you can target the address that you want to receive the benefits of your holdings. So regardless if you bought the elements in Milkomeda, if you bought them on Polygon, wherever you bought them, you'll be able to say, this is my Cardano address or this is my Ethereum address to which I want the bonuses to go. So it doesn't matter where you bought them, you'll get the bonus regardless. That's the beauty of being a multi-chain product.
There are some questions coming from
Yeah, there are. Freak, you want to take those?
Yeah, Brahms is asking because he was lagging. So he's asking again if it's something that is automatically done or you got to do it through the DEGA dashboard.
The only thing that you got to do manually is the PMP migration, right? We don't want to do that automatically because, for example, if we do that and we send it to an address that you no longer have access to, then you lose it, right? So we will have you input the Cardano address to which you want your PMP to be migrated.
Okay, and the next question comes from the Froggy, which is, will the Polkadot PMPs be available to migrate as well?
Yeah. We'll probably do that one after the Cardano one, but yeah, we'll allow you to migrate those two elements. In that sense, we can let you migrate them to any of the current chains. Because the thing is, Polkadot it's like a layer 0 technology per se, right? It's not a layer 1. Because the layer 1s would be the parachains. They don't natively have an ecosystem for NFTs, right? You don't have a native NFT on the main chain for Polkadot. You would usually have those on parachains. Yeah, so you'll be able to migrate them to any of the chains that we have so far, or we might just pick 2 or 3 options there. If there's any particular preference, feel free to express it right now, right? We got in the Polkadot side of the ISPO, there's like very few participants, so we can actually cater to you, right? If anybody has a particular, if you tell us, if everybody just says, yeah, just do Polygon, okay, we'll just migrate your PMPs to Polygon.
Perfect. And the last question from this section is from the Loot Goblin, and is how do you mean the Cardano native elements?
It'll be the same kind of experience of the current element. So you'll be able to connect your wallet on the web app and then just hit mint, right? Like you send a transaction and you get your NFT essentially.
I love your name, by the way, man.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, that Loot Goblin.
Luke Goblin. So I have 2 boys, and one of them is a Luke Goblin. I'm definitely feeling you on that one, brother. Okay, so now to the meat of the conversation, if we don't have any other questions.
There's one more there that says, I have elements in Milkom ADA and one chain. Will I need to choose if the bonus applies to ADA, Polkadot, ISPO? Yeah, you'll be able to pick whether it goes to ADA, Polkadot, or Ethereum ISPO, right? So you'll just say, this is where I want the ISPO, my bonuses to go to, and it'll be a text box, you'll put your address there, and that's it. We'll ask you to sign a transaction to make sure that it is truly your wallet, and with that, we'll get it done.
Oh, Bunny's got my brother, the Bunny. Can I wait to convert until I increase ISPO blessing level?
Yeah, we'll leave it open, right, for you to migrate at your
You
discretion.
can choose. Yeah, there's all kinds of little tricks that are buried in our release schedule that if you do things at certain times, you definitely will find ways of getting more loot.
Maximizing returns. Yeah. For example, like trying to get a supernova in the gold one is very hard, right? But if you were part of the ISPO from the start, or if you've done enough epochs in the ISPO, you get upgraded to supernova, right? So it's like instead of becoming something of luck, it becomes something of loyalty, you could say. And that's why the name it's called a blessing, right? It's tied. It's something that can be varied, right? A blessing can be something that you were received through different ways.
Thanks for the shout out there, Bunny. I love you, brother. Remember the first time you came into the community, I had to say something immediately. But anyways, okay, let's see here. On to white paper questions. Oh, wait, proms? Is there an automatic way to find out what blessing we are on, or do we need to manually work it out?
That's in the bonus, right? If you look at your bonuses, if you have a supernova bonus, then that means that you're supernova, right? And that's where your PMPs will be migrated towards. So that's essentially it, right? The bonus that you have in the ISPO, that's what your PMP will match to.
All right, so I'm going to close questions right now, and we're going to move on to the roadmap. Hopefully everyone got a chance to take a look at the roadmap. And did you want to screen share the roadmap, or how, because it would be great for everyone to look at it if they can, as we're talking about it.
I can do that while you get going.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
Oh, yeah.
invite everyone to
Yeah.
share this.
Yeah. One thing, I'm seeing a lot of questions about past prizes as part of contests and all those kind of things that we've done in the past. If you haven't gotten a prize yet, the way that you do that is go right to the support section of Discord, open a ticket, and Froggy will be able to help you out there.
Yeah, they're tracked. Again, the team, you wouldn't believe how hard and focused the team has had to be the last few weeks. As soon as we finish this up, we'll get to making sure we distribute those prizes, and we'll also write up a tool to make it easier and faster and more real time in the future. But yes, absolutely. I myself, the CEO, am personally tracking all of the rewards that we have to give. I have them all here.
So yeah, that's the way you do it. Go to support. So before we get started on the roadmap conversation, I am going to put a disclaimer out there around roadmaps in general, especially when you're dealing with advanced technology. And blockchain is an advanced technology. as well as the AI integration that we're doing. Roadmaps are not the best way to do a roadmap when you're dealing with especially with a startup doing high technology sorts of things. We tend to not want to put exact dates on things. If you put a date on something and something like what happened with the audit comes up, it can throw a whole team off and actually knock dates off. So it's like what we want to do with what we tried to do with our roadmap is we tried to put the highest level features in place in order so that everyone has an idea of what's going to happen first and what's going to happen after that. So these aren't the little things in between, the little gamification tweaks that we do in between. These are high level features across our 3 product lines, which is 1, DEGA Realms, 2, DEGA Studio, and then the blockchain itself, the DEGA metachain technology that is coming up behind all of the things that we're doing. If you look at our roadmap across the board, you can see at a very high level that we're focusing on DEGA Realms first. And Carlos, did you want to talk to everybody about why we're focusing on DEGA Realms first?
Yeah. We're a very technical team, right? So we're engineers, and we always started thinking about what do engineers need. In the industry, it's often easier to prove a product end result, right? Versus the tooling that you need to get to said result, right? Let me give you, like, for example, an easy example is like cars, right? Imagine if Tesla started pitching their gigafactory automation, right? And there's no Tesla cars, right? So it's like you need to show off a product, like something that has in and of itself value for people so that they can understand sometimes the value of the tooling behind it. So we were like, let's start working on what you can do with the DEGA tooling, right? The API, the SDK. So let's build out a product that allows people to create games, right? Not a product for engineers to be able to integrate blockchain into games, but which is DEGA Studio, and it's coming. It's just at a later date. But a product that immediately you can jump in and in a few minutes create games, tell your story, monetize them, integrate them with blockchain tech. That's something that's really powerful, right? Like right now, using blockchain in general is hard, right? If anybody here has ever onboarded somebody to blockchain, you understand what I'm talking about. It's hard just to get the basic concepts across. Doing an app on blockchain is much harder. And doing games is like orders of magnitude harder because it involves creative process, engineering, testing, God knows how many other things, right? Marketing, community development, branding. It's an infinite, right, amount of challenges. So right now, Web3 gaming is the buzzword, right? But the industry itself is not going to be able to achieve escape velocity and true mass adoption with the current barrier of entry that we have, right? So that's where DEGA Realms comes in, right? So with DEGA Realms, the idea is to create the equivalent of a Wix for gaming, right? A place where you show up, you don't know how to program, you don't understand how APIs work, you don't understand how scalability works in systems, but you do understand that you have a story to tell, you have a brand in your mind, you have a design in your mind, and we're going to give you the tools so you can take that and very quickly create your game. How? With a whole bunch of stuff, guys. That's a whole other conversation. Procedural generation, AI integrations, standardization, and many other things that are needed for the system to be properly designed. So that's why DEGA Realms is the focus, right? Because we can show the value easier, right? And it's also something that it's accessible to more people. So instead of me having to go and convince one of the 30 AAA studios that exist in the planet to build with us, I could just say, here's the tooling. Literally anybody can use it. Go, shoot. And I'm sure that out of the 6 billion humans that exist on the planet, we can get 6,000 at least, right, to use it, right? And then we start on that track, right? And then other games will start building on top of the systems that we're developing. So other games might not want to use DEGA Realms because they have other tooling, right? But they will want to integrate the underlying APIs and SDKs that confirm DEGA Realms, which are the DEGA 1 API, 1 SDK that you can see in the white paper, and DEGA Studio itself, which is more of an infrastructure management tool for the devs. So that's the vision, and that's why we did it that way.
Just to sum it up, with a quick sentence. Really what it is we're focusing on DEGA realms because we want to give as much value to as wide an audience as possible. Anyone will be able to get value from the DEGA realms environment. So it's like you as you all as creators of games who want to tell your story, token holders, us, anyone who's involved with the DEGA product, because we're moving the entire roadmap forward with this, and blockchain game development studios will be able to slide easier into a solution with a demonstration in front of them. For me, it is a much cleaner, much straightforward story when you talk about it like that, Carlos.
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay, looks like we haven't crossed off the ETH ISPO launch because I fell asleep at 6 o'clock in the evening last night and woke up to answer some more questions. And then the demonstrator game, we in the background, if you all don't know, we have been building this stuff in the background before we release it to you. So Carlos actually has been the one doing all of this. And the reason he's doing that is because he's seeing as a product expert, what he's doing is he's going through and doing this process. Yeah, I can automate that. I can automate that. I can automate that. I can automate that. But what comes out the end of that is an actual playable game that we can demonstrate, that we've used our tooling to be able to create a game. So Carlos, you want to talk about what a demonstrator game might look like and what you've been working on that?
Yeah. There's quite a few things there that we're working on. The game itself, we went for what you would call a top-down 2D game style, right? So for all of you who remember the original Pokemon, the original Zelda, that's like the gameplay that we're going with, right? Why? Multiple reasons. One, it's easy to get assets for that, and it's not only for us, right? Like you, if you want to make a game, you can very easily and cheaply get, or for free, assets that work with that type of game, or you can pay somebody to make them. It'll be cheap, right? Very different story if you want to make a AAA quality 3D graphics, right? You'll have to get borderline cinematic level of talent. This makes it, again, very easy for anybody to work with, right? That's one of the reasons. The other reasons is that it can run on almost any device, right? Even a very low, cheap smartphone can run that type of game. And we've always been about bringing the barriers of entry down in DEGA, right? And so that's like the reasons that we went with that. So the first type of gameplays that you'll be able to see there will be we've chosen 3, right? One of them will be like a wave defense. An example that you can look at if you want to Google is one game called Vampire Survivors. That's actually more of a roguelike, but it has elements of wave defense that I liked. So like that. So that one is that the graphics on that game are horrible, right? We're not gonna have that level of our graphics are gonna be way better, but they're still gonna be pixel, right, and 2D. But just to give you an idea of the gameplay. Then besides the wave defense, the other one is what I think we actually got to invent a new term for it, because conventionally it would be known as a social simulation gameplay, which is what the Sims are. So think about a 2D version of the Sims, but instead of doing lame things like washing the dishes and going to work, what they're doing is they're degenning, right? They're essentially having access to Web3 APIs to be able to do what we do every day, right? Swapping, going long on positions, buying NFTs, whatever. And that's why we're gonna call our showcase of that the Degens, right? And that's what we're working with in partnership with Venus Protocols. We still have a few things there to announce and formalize that with them, with their DAO, but it's coming, right? Those are like the first 2 types of gameplay. The third one that I want to do is like a 2D battle royale, right? Like just jump in there and compete, and last one standing wins. So that's where our current focus is going to be. I already have some of that gameplay running, but in this particular point, I really do feel some, let's say, I think that it's best to show it once it's complete, because I don't want to spoil the surprise in that sense. But yeah, looking pretty nice. There will be some clips of the visuals. The visuals are not particularly special. I would say they're 2D pixel art. They'll be beautiful, but that you can see, and Freak is actually going to update the Twitter banner to showcase a little bit how they would look like. Will
That
essentially
banner's
be,
going everywhere. That banner's going everywhere. All of our socials are going to have that banner.
yeah. And yeah, the maps are the maps that you guys have been creating, right? All the maps that you can see in DEGA Realms, those are going to be playable maps, right? The characters we haven't revealed, we'll probably be doing that reveal at the end of this month. We have 3 types of characters that will be created. They're different collections with different partnerships. So one of them is like the Degens with Venus. The Rabbit and I are still cooking up a concept called injectors with the injective guys. Yeah, and of course the DEGA heroes, right, which are the original one that was tied to the PMPs, but now it'll be tied to the elements. And the way that all of these will be issued is through factories, right? Everything that's created will be through factories. So the people that actually are making transaction, well, we'll have a transaction fee on secondary market trading, but when somebody mints a new, let's say, hero, they will pay the factory owner for it, right? So you guys here are the ones that are going to own the factories, and you're going to have a cash flow from the factory. So it'll be up to you to promote your factory. Yeah, that's what's coming there.
From an economic, you all know me, I sometimes get very geeky. I'll get a little geeky right now. Means of production is a term in economics, and everyone tries to capture means of production in order to be powerful inside of a system. The factory in our ecosystem is the means of production, and they are ownable. So we are passing the means of production onto you, the community, so that you are the people who are running DEGA and what gets created and what gets minted and all that. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyways, okay, so moving on. Demonstrator game, Matic, the Polygon ISPO launch, it's going to be pretty similar to the ETH ISPO launch. I don't want to go too deep into that one right now because I think the next one's probably going to take a bit of time to talk about because everyone's going to have a lot of questions around that. That is the token generating event. So token generating event. Carlos?
Yeah, what up? What up?
Yeah, you want to give an update on where we're at with the token generating event, like how that's going to go so that the community is prepared for that?
I don't want to.
I was like, oh my god, I'm
Hey,
recording and clipping.
dealer's choice, man. Dealer's choice. That's fine. We don't have to go into that. We can jump right on to character minting if we're not going to discuss that here.
Yeah, no, the only thing is we'll be posting the date in this month, like the exact date, and with that you'll get more of the details, right? But
Yeah, that's
listen, for all of you out there, listen,
what I was looking for, Carlos.
generate. Yeah, listen, generate token, it's not hard. Like, you know, I give you 1,000,000 tokens. That's not the key of it, right? The key is to have the proper relationships, the proper markets, the proper setup on market making and many other to ensure that it's a success. So more so than when, it's the how, I would say, is the key to a successful token generation event. I don't like to do stuff like publishing. When I give specific dates, I like to meet them. And that's why we haven't given a specific date, right? Because we're still negotiating some aspect of that. But it'll be very soon. Like, I'm very anxious myself to get the token out there. But certain events have to happen beforehand, right? Like, I think that everybody here could imagine the difference of having a token generation event. For example, if it were to be today versus having it after we've done our partnerships with Venus, with Injective, with another chain there that we're still in conversations with, and many more things that we're releasing in terms of features, gameplays, factories, etc. All of those things are what are going to set us up for success, more so than being urgent throwing that out there right now.
That is exactly what I was looking for, Carlos. I think that's the thing that people need to understand, that you can copy a contract and create as many tokens as you want anywhere right now. But the people who do not take the time to form the proper relationships, get in touch with people before it happens, get the conversation going around it, like all the things that need to happen leading up to it, if those things aren't done, you're just gonna, your token's not gonna be what it could be. We could pull the trigger whenever, but all this stuff that you're doing with us right now, do you want it to be valuable? If so, be patient with us while we get all these relationships in place. Okay, so moving on to character minting. Thank you for that, Carlos.
Sure thing.
From the character minting, so the process at this point, what we did with the maps, what I'm expecting is that when you're able to make your character, one thing that we've always talked about way back in the beginning, if you go back and read some of our very early things that we've written, we talked about having your own avatar in the system, in the ecosystem of DEGA. So this to me is you can create a bunch of characters for your game in DEGA realms, but also this is like Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are also the potential for you to have an avatar inside of our DEGA ecosystem where if you're walking around inside of our ecosystem, you got your inventory backpack and all the stuff is going to be in there and all the things are going to be in there. And that's the character is like the key to opening up quite a bit of utility inside of our system. Is that correct, Carlos?
Yeah, everything will be gamified, right? Everything that we're doing is gamified. So your character can be upgraded, it can receive special awards, special mentions, which will further open more features for you and exclusive access within the DEGA ecosystem.
That is in progress at this point. So moving on to like phase beta, pending, because we want to get all our stuff done in alpha first. But phase beta, the token monitoring and reporting stuff, that's really ops. That's my side of the house. And what that is we just want to make sure that we're monitoring how our token is doing, reporting to you, all of the metrics that you're probably used to, making sure that we have the relationship set up with analysts and things like that so they can talk about how the token is performing in the marketplace. Won't necessarily, and all those things will be part of that. Then after that is data factories. We touched on that a little bit. We don't really need to go into that too much more. The gameplay builder, and Carlos actually did touch on that a little bit too. It's if you want to talk about that a little bit more, Carlos, but the high level for something like that would be when you're building a car, the carburetors might be a little bit different, but they're still a carburetor. And it's okay. So we're going to give you the raw carburetor and you plug it into your game as you would like. But Carlos, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into that.
I gotta say, I did not get your carburetor analogy, Rabbit.
You didn't get the carburetor analogy? Every car has a carburetor. Every car has an engine. The engines might be a little bit different based on the design, but it's still a carburetor. It's still an engine. It still does something inside of that car.
All right. But what's your question on that?
Do you want to talk about the gameplay builder a little bit more for people?
Okay. Yeah, the gameplay builder is more like separating the execution or the dynamics of the game more so than the content that it's inside a game, right? So right now, if you all go out and try to check any particular game whose code's been released, right? And some of them are open source. Very few games are open source, but there are a few. And even some of the old games whose code was leaked online or whatever, you'll find that every item in there, every object, every element, the maps, everything is just strongly coupled to the gameplay that it was designed for. So it's not like, you can reuse the same character for different types of gameplay or the same map for different types of gameplay, right? They were just not made that way. Everything was made to be specifically like a movie. You make the footage of a movie to tell that one movie story. You don't make footage thinking that it'll be reused, right? Very different of how we build websites, right? Everything in a website is meant to be reused, right? Like the images, the videos, the audio, the text, of course. It's content, right? Content is separated from the execution. The execution can be a website, it can be a native app, it could be it could be printed even, right? So the content is independent from the medium which it's delivered. So that's the same thing that we're bringing to games, right? So you can reuse the same character, reuse the same maps for multiple different types of gameplay, right? So if y'all out there creating your own maps, right, and you give it a certain theme, let's say you want to give it a space pirate theme, you can create those maps and you can have battle royales there, you can have wave defense there, you can have social automation, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it with the same content. And then the gameplay is just like a separate engine that just knows how to deal with all of that, right? You'll just say, this map and these characters, make them into a battle royale. So it'll go in there and it applies all the rules that you need to do for having a battle royale. And that's essentially what it is, right? Having multiple gameplays that you can combine with your maps and characters.
There it is. Excellent. Now my favorite thing in the world, the LLM coder, the assist. Everyone,
Yeah.
I am like I said earlier, I'm an AI guy, and I use AI as the high level description of what it is that we're actually doing here. But the LLM coder, the assist thing, Carlos, you want to just jump into that real quick, what that experience is going to be like?
The moment the rabbit has been waiting for.
No, right now, a lot of people, first off, with LLMs, for those of you who don't know, it means large language model, right? And that's essentially what ChatGPT is and any of the other systems that are being open source. But these systems, they're being, I would say, rightfully so hyped, right? They are very impressive, but they've been overhyped for sure as well. So a lot of people are thinking that they could just do anything, and once you start trying them out, they really start to mess up a lot, like a lot. So a lot of people want to create what they're saying text the game, right? So you just chat with it and it'll create a whole game. The LLM in and of itself, just by itself, it's maybe 15 years away from being able to do something like that. Maybe less, right? Because sometimes things go fast. But even if it goes fast, I just want to let you know that it's just like super far away from being able to do that. Now, LLMs combined with a proper game development workflow and pre-existing toolings and frameworks, that's a whole different story, right? So that's why we're creating all of these tools separate, right? Like the map builder, the character builder, the factories concept. All of these systems then will serve as building blocks that the LLM can use and coordinate with to be able to deliver your game, right? And in that way, it truly can give you, at the very least, a 10x productivity boost. So whatever you're doing, you can do 10 times faster. We're actually going to aim, thanks to these other components, right, like procedural generation engines and others, we're going to aim to give you like 100x productivity boost, right? We want you to be able to do what you would have needed 100 programmers to be able to do in the past. And again, that's not just the LLM, but the LLM is like the center stage, right? He's the automation engine coordinating all of the different building blocks that will allow you to do this. So that's where it's headed. So you'll be able to chat with it and it'll come do back and forth, generate things, show them to you, look for approval, test things out, make sure they don't have issues, try them out again, etc. But essentially, instead of you having to inject custom developed code, you'll just request the LLM what you want, and it'll make sure that to generate that code, test it out, and that integrates and works properly with all the DEGA building blocks.
Okay, so guys, what do you think if we jump straight to questions? We have several questions from the past topic, so I don't know if you're okay with that, and then we can move on with the plan.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, so question from the white paper. I think this is John our friend John asked it, and Froggy's bringing it back. The question is, the white label solution for NFT marketplaces, is this going to be available cross-chain? Specifically, I have a project on one chain and I need an NFT marketplace.
Yeah, that'll definitely be available across chains for sure.
And also, is there a timeline for this? Or to avoid dates, what DEGA phase does this white label NFT marketplace, which is, I think, is beta?
The funny thing is we'd actually done that in the past, but I don't want to use some of the components we had back then because they're probably outdated right now towards the end of Q2 or at the beginning of Q3, just due to the priorities we have right now.
Okay, perfecto. Froggy, do we have more questions? Because I'm scrolling back to find more questions that we have besides the birthday party questions on March. I'm not seeing any more questions here, Carlos. Oh, yeah, I see one from Phoenix. So will the game building tool support both 2D and 3D games or only 2D? An example, will it have a building Unity Unreal Engine-like system?
We'll start off with 2D for the time being. Even when we do 3D, the first version of the 3D games that we'll do will be part of a style that's called D, right? Technically, we can't use that because that's trademark from the guys that created Octopath. But that's like the style, right? Which is 2D sprites in a 3D vector world. So if you want to know how that looks, just Google Octopath and that type of game. So we'll do top-down first, right, which is the current version. We'll make sure that everything that we've described so far, right, even the integration, works well with that. So that'll be the only type of game we'll be doing for at the very least the next 8 months. Then we'll integrate isometric view, which is when the character is a little bit with an angle, right? Similar to like the strategic games like StarCraft or Age of Empires. Your map is not like a flat top-down; it's more like with an angle. So isometric will be the next one, and then it'll be the HD 2D type, and then we'll start to explore 3D render assets there, right? Just again because we want to make sure that everybody can start building this and that it runs everywhere. So it has to be 2D sprites, right? Because they're going to require the least amount of resources and they're also the easiest to generate. Even procedural generation and AI generated services will work far better with those type of 2D sprites right now. 3D will come, but it's still, I would say, a year away from having like real good quality 3D generated assets from AI systems, right?
Perfect. Thank you. So that question was answered. So just to let you know, the end of Q1 will be my birthday and Keffergy's birthday also, and his wife's birthday and my sister's birthday, 30 and 31st of March. Most important date. I don't see it in the roadmap, but I'll ask the rabbit if he can add it because it's important. Also, the last question is: will the DEGA token be available on Meld?
Yeah, it'll be there. We're doing something very cool with Mel this month. That's the only thing I actually mentioned several projects we're doing, but yeah, just because we wanted it to be a bang, right? So I'm not going to reveal anything around that, but yeah, we got something cool cooking up with Meld for this month, so you won't have to wait much.
Bunny, to answer your question, which is we talked about the elements DEGA value being the value attached to that being reduced. If you've noticed up to this point, we generally don't quote unquote take something away without giving you something. So just hang in there on that. We'll be communicating about that after we get some of these other other things out of the way. It will here's your hint. It is going to change the dynamic of how you work with elements.
Yeah, that's coming very soon as well. So there will be a reduction in the DEGA airdrop that's associated with the elements.
And then someone's asking about the DEGA token ticker symbol.
Yeah, it'll be DEGA. The fact that there's others out there, that's unavoidable in crypto. Even if there weren't one right now, you can be assured that as we release and we are a success, there will be many who will try to capitalize on that and try to copy that. If even, for example, for our partners Meld, you can go right now and you type in Meld in CoinMarketCap. So that's just part of crypto, right? The freedom for everybody to do things also allows for that. Whether we can mitigate that, yes, there are some ways, but that's something I definitely will not be discussing here because they're more related to the legal side of things. But yes, DEGA will be the DEGA ticker.
And then the last question from this section, we go to Rabbit, is from the special guy. And any plans for side-scrolling 2D game development?
The special guy.
Yeah, his name is Special.
Yeah.
Asking,
Yeah.
Any plans for side-scrolling 2D game development, Ori and such?
If you, I grew up on those side scrollers, so it's like Castlevania or Metroid or any of those kind of like
Ninja
early games where
Gaiden.
there's kind of Ninja Gaiden, one of the hardest games I've ever played, one of the only games that I have never finished. The way that those work, and I'm not going to talk about development because that's Carlos's side, but the way that those things work is they really are just maps next to each other. So if you think about if you built a map that was built for that, and then you just put those maps next to each other and that side scrolling, yeah, that was easy. I beat that one. Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts, all those. The way that works is they're maps that are next to each other and there's no up down movement. So it's like the mechanics that would be behind something like that are totally doable, even within the environment that we're building here. But from a technical implementation perspective, I am not going to say when or how we're going to do that. Right now, we're just getting started with the 3D kind of Zelda-ish way of doing it.
It would be top-down 2D, right? Not 3D-ish.
Down 2D-ish, correct. That's the way we're getting started. If you ever played the original Legend of Zelda, that up, down, north, east, southwest, like movement in a 2D environment is what we're getting started with.
Yeah, the main difference is that we can leverage more modern technologies to use better effects like particle systems and stuff like that. That's like the difference there, right? Like in the past, game devs were very limited with these types of games, but now you can make them look pretty nice, pretty cool.
Yeah. So we are at the top of the hour and we've actually gone past our allotted time. Do we want to keep going? Or Carlos, do you have anything pressing right now, or can you stick around for a little while?
I could do 10 more minutes for sure.
Okay, so let's just fly through the rest of this. Sorry, everyone. We're just going to fly through the rest of this. And then if we have any other questions that pop up, we'll just do it. We'll answer them in chat. So we ended up the marketplace builder, the account abstraction. Did we talk about marketplace builder enough? I had to actually go and check on something in the kitchen and I didn't really get a chance to hear. Did we talk about that at all?
They just asked if it would be multi-chain deployed on multiple networks, and I confirmed that it would be.
Okay, so we all know what account abstraction. We've talked about that a little bit. That's a technical term for being able to just log in like it's a Web 2 experience. Is that correct, Carlos?
Yeah, essentially managing your wallet without you knowing that you're managing your wallet, right? And you're working with the conventional email or user and passwords instead of having to go and open up MetaMask and sign things.
Okay, so UX UI realms means that all of these functions that we've talked about together, that they're all going to be in a application. So with all the additional bells and whistles of workflow and all those types of things. Is that correct, Carlos?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so gamma is when things start to get into DEGA Studio. So the DEGA Studio product is it's for super users and developers, which as we do the DEGA Realms piece of this, a lot of the pieces of that product are actually going to be built in the background. There's that. And then the Realm Studio integration. Like you hear us talk about Wix a lot. And Wix is just one example of many democratization technologies, meaning that we take the power away from the people who need expert knowledge to do something and we give it to you all. In the Realm Studio integration means you can swap from one to the other. You can actually build something in DEGA Realms and then hit a switch and you're actually able to do things in DEGA Studio from a deeper programmatic perspective. And then there was an earlier question about Unity and Unreal. Of course, if we're going to be working with developers, we want to have the two number one pieces of technology that people are using today associated with our studio. Then there's the UX UI for the studio that wraps it all up and puts it into a nice, neat package. Studio beta launch. Obviously, we're launching it. Okay, so now we start getting into the really interesting stuff or the real technical side of things. And this is the DEGA 1 API. Carlos, you want to talk about that one a little bit? Because I will trip over myself on this one.
DEGA 1 API is essentially the unification of all the access to the infrastructure and platforms and tools that we're providing at DEGA for building games, right? So accessing the LLMs, accessing the RPC endpoints, the routers for the blockchain transactions, or accessing the repository of open and published game assets. Everything that you're doing will be done through the SDK and API, right? So it's a single point for the devs to go to. Obviously, it'll be properly modularized, so you don't have to work with the things that you don't need at any given time. But it represents, that's why it's called DEGA 1, right? Because it's one place for all the services products that we're developing.
Okay, and then the SDK kind of ties right into that. Do you just want to dovetail into that one?
Yeah, usually APIs and SDKs go hand in hand, right? For everybody out there that's not technical, an API is the service that the system has, right? Like when you access your Gmail, there's back and forth conversations between your web client, right? Your web app and the servers behind providing information. That's done through what we call APIs. And in essence, you have an SDK that allows you to talk with an API simpler, right? In a simpler way, because otherwise the computers need data to be structured before it can be sent to them, right? So something as simple as a form, right? Your name, your phone number, your address, whatever, that needs to be sent in a particular order for the computer to process it, right? It's not like a human, right? In which I just dumped the text on you and you can see it. And even if I put the address first and the name later, like you see it, you get it, right? Computers need a proper structure for the data that's being communicated. And that's what the SDK helps you to do in a easier way, right? To send the right information field to the API so that you can request whatever it is that you want, right? And this is literally anything, right? That's how ChatGPT works. That's how Midjourney works. Everything that you're using, this call that we're having right now is using multiple Discord APIs. So in essence, the SDK is the assistant, right? It means software development kit, right? Like an assistant kit so that you can work with the API.
All right, so let's move on quickly because we do all have to get back to work. So DNFTs, just I'll let Carlos talk about the function of the DNFT. However, if we're gonna label it DNFTs probably in the delta phase, but all the stuff we're doing with NFTs up to this point is leading up to that. Carlos, want to talk about DNFTs a little bit?
Yeah, the NFTs is when your NFT upgrades to a certain status within the DEGA ecosystem. And once you do that, you'll be able to run DEGA nodes for the infrastructure side of things that we talked about in the DEGA metachain section of the white paper, and many other infrastructure services that will be required. So essentially a DNFT is like a DEGA NFT, right? When you're part of the DEGA infrastructure network, that's when your NFT becomes that, right?
Funding for third-party games. All
Yeah,
right,
that's a simple one, right? That just means opening up the ISPO mechanics that we have right now for third parties, right? Just we couldn't be here without the immense support that we've received from our community. We want to make sure that other people don't have to go and build out all the tools for that. So we'll just enable them to reuse everything that we've developed.
yeah, so you get the full power of the DEGA ecosystem ISPO engine for crowdfunding for your game.
Listen to that, tribes.
And then we got Auth.
Yeah, DF is like our flavor of the account abstraction, right? While doing it for ourselves is like the first simple step. Once it becomes open for everybody else to use, it has to be standardized, right? And that standard will be called D.
I know that's hard to explain, but that's actually one of my favorite parts of the project because that calls for standardization, which I love. That means games can talk to games, protocols can talk to protocols, all that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. Data wallet.
Yeah, that'll be a companion app on the mobile device so that you can quickly access and manage all your assets from one place across the chain systems that we're deploying. And many other things will be done from there. Eventually, you want Dega Realms for you to be able to create that from your mobile phone, to be able to publish it, to monetize it, and to do all of that from a single phone application. And that'll be the Dega wallet. Might change the name later, but for now, let's just call it Dega wallet.
That's what people will recognize. Metachains, the thing that sucked me into this project, Carlos.
Yeah, MetaChains requires like its own paper. We will be
It really
releasing
does.
the research paper on that. But essentially, it's a new type of protocol. We're taking the Tendermint protocol and combining it with multi-party computation so that we can create a fractal hierarchical set of validators. And this will mean that you can expand your number of validators by an order of magnitude, but your consensus time just increases linearly by a few milliseconds. So for example, if I want to go from 100 nodes to 1,000 nodes, I can do that, and my consensus will only be slowed down from, say, 300 milliseconds to 330 milliseconds, right? And then I want to go from 1,000 to 10,000 nodes, and I just add another 30 milliseconds. So that type of system will truly, there's nobody doing that one right now. Not sure why. Like, it's the first thing that came to my mind when I started seeing consensus engines. But we'll be doing that, and then essentially that'll be a truly powerful system that will allow for globally scalable blockchain networks. Scalable in the sense of scaling to multiple servers, like nodes that can support the network and failover without delaying the consensus algorithm.
I know, Carlos, you don't like it when I do this sometimes, but I'm going to do it anyways. When I heard about metachains the first time in gaming, I was thinking you have a Gatling gun firing at 160 rounds per second, and it's sitting in a room, and every bullet is an NFT. And you have to, each one of those bullets might have a different property associated with it. And you can just fire that gun off and the chain can completely handle it. even if every single bullet was an NFT. So applying something like this to gaming, you can track things down to the atomic in your game, which is fascinating for someone like me.
Yeah, it takes principles that are already applied in the cloud. It's like the cloud already scaled, right? That's why we have the internet.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're taking certain architectures. In case somebody there is an engineer and you want to read about that, you can Google Lambda architecture or Kappa architecture. And we're taking that, but instead of using Kafka as a distributed ledger, we're going to be using blockchains, meta chains, and applying this new consensus to it to make it more powerful and innovative.
And then DEGA Realm Studio integration is just full protocol implementation with everything that we've talked about up to this point, and then it's protocol launch. And we are that would be the end of our current roadmap.
Who's called the Dega Daddy? That's a cool.
Oh, I know who DEGA Daddy is.
That's a cool handle.
Yeah, it's
Could have
not
been
just
my
cool.
handle.
It's not just a cool handle. It's a cool kid. I follow him and listen to his music quite often. I'm a fan.
Oh yeah, it's actually
It's
we might have something of his
it's
where
raw. It's raw. I love it.
if Dega Daddy allows us, we can play one of his songs at the end. I got it uploaded all the time.
Like, do it.
So you wanna? Hey, this was amazing.
Brother, I'm
I
always out there. You may not hear me. I may not say anything, but I will tell you, Dega Daddy, I am listening and I am cheering you on because I think that your brand of music is just the kind of thing that, anyways, following the tradition of the greats who came before you. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so everyone, this was an amazing session.